Now, before you go and hoy shag loads of money at the likes of Apple for their latest overpriced slab, you should absolutely check out what you can get for half the price or even less. Because you might be surprised at all the tasty tech you'll find stuffed inside of the latest mid-range mobiles. The likes of Samsung, Google, Motorola, OnePlus and Nothing all offer some supremely satisfying smartphone action for a fraction of the cost of a flagship blower. Complete with capable cameras, proper gaming grunt, gorgeous OLED displays, and plenty of features that Apple can't be bothered to put in the iPhone 16, like a USB 3 port or an always-on display, or a good bit of fancy pants disco lights, who doesn't like that? Now, I've already reviewed literally dozens of mid-range smartphones in 2024, I just can't get a bloody enough. So here's my guide to the best mid-range smartphones you can grab yourself right now, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, one of the first mid-rangers you should have a good hard squint at is Google's Pixel 8a, which is a fair chunk of change cheaper than the Pixel 9 flagship, but almost just as good as the bugger. Sure, the Pixel 8a is made of cheaper stuff than its Pixel 9 flagship siblings, but you wouldn't know it even if you copped a pretty hefty feel. You've still got yourself a metal frame, and I actually prefer the fingerprint-free finish here on the Pixel 8a compared with the absolute muckfest of the Pixel 9 and its glossy arse. The brains of this mini mid-ranger is that self-same Tensor G3 chipset that Google crammed into the 8 and the 8 Pro, complete with all those smart-ass AI-type shenanigans. And while it's not the beefiest of blowers, the Pixel 8a can still handle some serious Genshin impact, and mercifully rarely overheats. That 6.1-inch OLED screen is another 90Hz slice of eye pleasing heaven, while the stereo speaker setup ain't too shabby either. And the software side is just as satisfying, as you've got up to 7 years of OS and security updates to look forward to. But as always, one of the highlights of this Google handset is the excellent camera tech. That hardware isn't quite as advanced as the flagships, but the top-notch image processing smarts means you'll get good-looking pics at almost any time of day. And even if your photo does look a bit crap, well, no worries. Those editing tools will rescue even the cackiest of snaps. One of my other favourite mid-range phones right now is the OnePlus Nord 4, a full metal banger that conjures up glorious flashbacks of HTC and LG blowers from back in the day. Better days all around, I think we can agree, especially as I still had some hair on my head and my liver wasn't quite as hurty. As well as that hardy and lovable design, the Nord 4 boasts extended OS upgrade support and a slick bit of Oxygen OS, complete with a proper gaming mode and quite a few other useful extras. The massive 6.74-inch AMOLED screen is a beaut, and your pokes and prods will register even when this phone is proper moist, making it ideal when living in damp fests like the UK. A capable Snapdragon 7 Plus Gen 3 powers the Nord 4, so it can handle pretty much anything you hoy at it, including some serious gaming on titles like Genshin, without suffering a metaphorical prolapse of its metaphorical rectum. And the battery life here is absolutely sublime, which is certainly helped along by the fact that it's got a mighty 5,500 mAh capacity cell stuffed inside of that metal body, which is not just one of the biggest you'll find on any mid-range phone in 2024, it's one of the biggest you'll find on any phone. And even if the Nord 4 does run dry, you've got that 100-watt Super VOOC wide charging support, so bung a cable in it and it'll charge up faster than you can say this charges up really jolly fast. Actually, no, not quite that quick, but it's pretty nippy. And while the camera results aren't quite as reliable as Google's, this OnePlus Mobile can still produce attractive looking photos even in quite challenging conditions. So overall, it's a bit of a cracker. Now, very similar in the specs department is Vivo's latest V40 and V40 Pro, although they can be a bit of a ball ache to track down here in the UK. But if you live somewhere with easy access, they are certainly worth a crack. You've once again got a massive 6.78-inch AMOLED screen with pin-sharp 1.5K resolution, complete with a respectable stereo speaker setup on both of these phones. The regular Vivo V40 is powered by Qualcomm's Snapdragon 7 Gen 3, while the Pro model has MediaTek's Dimensity 9200 Plus stuffed inside. Both can cope with Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves and other memory-hogging games, although things are slightly smoother on the V40 Pro. Battery life is, again, absolutely stellar on both these handsets, with a 5,500 mAh battery crammed inside, complete with 80-watt fast charging. You've also got a bit of 50 meg Zeiss branded camera tech slapped on the back end of both of these blowers, albeit with slightly different sensors, as well as the usual modes to boost your pic with eye-poppingly vivid results. But only the Pro offers a telephoto portrait shooter for capturing crispy pics of your family or other humans without getting right up in their face. And if you're getting ready to spunk loads of cash on Samsung's latest Galaxy S24, or maybe one of its even bigger and pricier siblings, well, stuff that thick wad back into your pants and maybe consider the Galaxy A55 instead. For a start, the A55's Gorilla Glass Victus and metal design looks and feels about as luxurious as those premium-priced S24 efforts, with a nice selection of colours also on offer. And like the Pixel, this blower boasts IP67 dust and water resistance. Good news for any slippery-fingered folk who've suffered that heart-rending experience of dropping their shiny new blower into a sink, a bathtub, or, God forbid, a urinal midstream. The software shenanigans are similar on the Galaxy A55 too, including Samsung's many homebrew apps, as well as their useful as a chocolate condom Bixby assistant. Just don't expect all of those AI smarts that you'll find crammed onto the S24 blowers. And Sammy has also promised that Galaxy A55 owners will enjoy up to 5 years of OS and security updates on this shiny blower, making it another keeper. That 6.6-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED screen has grown over last year's model, but it still pumps out sharp Full HD Plus images, complete with Samsung's trademark poppy colours, while it's also bright enough for comfortable outdoor use. You've got micro SD memory card support, you've got eSIM support, the works. And thankfully, despite being powered by yet another Samsung chipset, the Galaxy A55 serves up a reasonably judder-free everyday experience, and doesn't absolutely drop a bollock when faced with intensive games like Genshin. And likewise, the generously sized 5000 mAh capacity battery can keep you going all day long, although yes, the 25-watt wide charging support is slower than a blind tortoise wearing concrete shoes. And while the camera tech isn't as sturdy as the S24's, you'll still hopefully be happy with the Galaxy A55's pics and home movies, even if you don't get those same excellent editing tools that Google slaps on its pixels. Alternatively, for a wee bit less cash, there's always the Samsung Galaxy A35. It's another water-resistant blower with a 120Hz AMOLED display, you got stereo speakers and some decent optics for the respectable asking price. Battery life is brilliant too, giving you stress-free all-day play, no worries. Performance sadly is a wee bit shaky at times, but if you're blessed with patience, unlike my good self, you should get on with it just fine. My full review of the Galaxy A35 is live right now. And you may have spotted that Samsung has finally launched the Galaxy S24 FE as well, where the FE stands for Fan Edition. What it really is basically just a slightly cut price version of the original flagship with some of the shinier bits stripped out to bring down the cost. But that's not quite as catchy as Fan Edition, I guess. Anyway, full review coming at you real soon. Might even be live by the time you're watching this, depending on how my editing is going. After all, I do actually have a proper booze cabinet these days. Tends to slow things down a bit.
Now, one of the more distinctive smartphones at this price range is the Nothing Phone 2A, which starts from just over 300 quid and again offers some decent specs to rival the Pixel. This slightly chunky smartphone sports a simplified glyph finish compared with the full-priced Nothing Phone 2, this time surrounding the rehoused camera hardware. But you still got that full notification support, the nifty countdown timer, and other literally flashy features.
And sadly, there's no wireless battery charging support, but at least the battery life is easily good enough to last you the full day.
That OLED screen is a delight, and the stereo speaker setup is not rubbish, so you can happily put your feet up and enjoy some video type shenanigans or a bit of gaming on the go. Speaking of which, thanks to the custom MediaTek chipset which runs the show here, that Nothing Phone 2A is nippy enough to play any game out there, Genshin Impact included, even when you max out those graphics.
And if you want to, you can spend a few more crisp pound notes on the Nothing Phone 2A Plus, which is a slightly more beefified version. Good news for you gamers.
Nothing's camera setup is suitably streamlined, so there's no pointless macro nonsense, etc. And it's decent enough to grab good looking pics and home movies, even in reasonably tested conditions. And Nothing OS is certainly grown on me. That black and white finish proves less distracting than regular Android.
Although of course all that flashy glyph shenanigans certainly more than makes up for that when you flip the phone over. Alternatively, if you happen to have a bit more cash to spunk on your next blow, we'll definitely check out the fully fledged Nothing Phone 2. The Nothing Phone 2 is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which should mean smoother performance for longer, while the slightly larger battery combined with that energy efficient chipset means you'll get a wee bit longer out of every charge. You've got a bigger, brighter display, you've got an upgraded rear and front camera, and that glyph disco lighting has been redesigned with even more zones than before, plus some nifty new features. Now, Motorola is yet another manufacturer who spunks out quite a few mid-range smartphones every single year, and 2024 certainly has not been an exception, to the point where I'm actually beginning to think I should change the name of this channel to Motorspurt. One of their best offerings right now is the Motorola Edge 50 Neo, which is just as pleasingly compact as that Pixel, but with a strokeably soft arse that's really rather smashing, as well as a bright selection of colours. And don't be fooled by the soft touch either, because the Neo is one tough bastard. This thing's got IP68 water and dust resistance, and it can also survive in extreme temperatures, which come in really handy the next time I bugger off up to Sunderland. The 6.4-inch POLED screen is eye-pleasingly bright and poppy, while the Dimensity Smarts are surprisingly good for gaming. And while the Moto Edge 50 Neo sports a dinky battery, it can merrily last a full day with fast wide charging on top. That 50 meg Sony Lightyear camera is pretty damn good for your everyday family snaps. You've also got a telephoto portrait lens slapped on the back end, which is pretty rare for this price point. I also adore that stock Android vibe, with the added bonus that Motorola is actually offering a good few years of OS and security updates with the Neo, which is unusual for them. Alternatively, for 50 quid less, there's always the Motorola Edge 50 Fusion, which is a bigger bugger at 6.67 inches. You've got a larger battery stuffed in there, as well as extra storage if you need it, although you also lose that portrait camera lens, and the Fusion isn't quite as capable for your gaming type shenanigans. Plus, Motorola's software support pledge isn't quite as dedicated here. Alternatively, one of the best manufacturers out there when it comes to offering beefy hardware for not much cash is Xiaomi. You should definitely check out that Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus.
This is yet another beefy 6.67 incher, this time with a slightly curved screen as well as a leather style finish. And if you don't like this patchwork colour effort, you can grab the Note 13 Pro Plus in basic black or white as well.
The frame itself is made of plastic, but you do have a Gorilla Glass Victus front end, which is quite good at not smashing to bits if you happen to drop the bugger basically. And the phone is also IP68 water and dust resistant, so yeah, again, you can drop it in a sink, a bathtub, whatever, and it won't bloody explode.
And that 6.67 inch OLED isn't just sharper than older models, it's also super bright. You got a MediaTek Dimensity 7200 Ultra running things with 12 gigs of that RAM stuff to help keep your apps and games running as well as possible. So Genshin Impact won't have this phone evacuating its metaphorical bowels.
And that chunky 5000 mAh battery comes with 120 watt wide charging support, one of the absolute best mid-rangers out there for fast charging, although sadly there is bugger all wireless charging support.
And while the 200 megapixel primary camera might sound mightily impressive, don't expect anything special. It's a perfectly fine snapper for capturing precious memories and sharing them with absolute strangers on social media. Alternatively, for a few pud less, you could grab the Redmi Note 13 Pro 5G, which may lose the plus plaudits, but it's still a bit of a mid-range corker. It's not as water resistant and the battery charge is a bit slower, but the only other change is the chipset. That 7200 Ultra has been swapped out for Qualcomm's Snapdragon 7S Gen 2. Gamers will prefer the pricier Plus model for demand and fare like Genshin, but you can still give it a bloody good go on the Pro 5G as long as you keep the graphics settings scaled down. And if you fancy livening up your afternoon with some sweat-inducing three-way action, well, I've compared the Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus, the Pro 5G, and the non-Pro models side by side right here on TechSpert.
And if you've got a bit more cash to spunk on your mid-range smartphone, well, I'd hardly recommend the Xiaomi 14T. It's yet another 6.67 incher with IP68 water and dust resistance, but also a plastic frame that does cheapen the feel. That big old AMOLED screen is similar to the Redmi, except this time you've got both HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision support. It's bright enough to clearly see on a sunny day, while the refresh scales up to a creamy smooth 144Hz. Great for any gamers out there. Speaking of which, that performance is also a step up thanks to MediaTek's Dimensity 8300 Ultra, which is kept nice and cool thanks to Xiaomi's stainless steel vapor chamber. And when you drain that 5000 mAh battery, you can refill it pretty nippily with the 67 watt hypercharge action. Although yes, once again, bugger all wireless charging to speak of. Xiaomi's 50 meg main camera is bolstered by some Leica processing smarts which help to produce sharp, detailed pic snaps with either a natural or a bright and vibrant finish, complete with a telephoto shooter to get that little bit closer to the action. So overall, the Xiaomi 14T is a bit of a banger. It doesn't do anything different, but it does do everything rather well. And do not sleep on the Poco smartphones either, which are essentially just Xiaomi blows which have been reskinned, generally stuff that hasn't come out here in the West. And the likes of the Poco X6 and the Poco X6 Pro are kind of similar to those Redmi phones, to the point where you might actually feel like you're getting deja vu.
They're yet more 6.67 inch hand fillers with 1.5K displays and stereo blasters, as well as the same size batteries, although that charging is locked at 67 watts for both. The Poco X6 once again rocks the Snapdragon 7S Gen 2, so go easy on that Genshin, while the Pro version this time has a Dimensity 8300 Ultra, some serious smarts for sure. As for the 64 meg camera, well, this does pump out different photo results depending on which Poco is packed into your pants.
And if you want a bit of side-by-side action, definitely check out my Poco X6 versus Poco X6 Pro video, which is live right now.
And any gaming fans out there looking for a dependable mid-range device should have a proper squint at one of my favourites, the Poco F4 GT. This absolute unit is powered by Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, which can blaze its way through any Android title out there. The gaming chops are further cemented by some very handy pop-up shoulder triggers, which can really take the pain out of more complex titles.
Battery life is good enough so you can game for a good wee while before you'll need to bung a cable in there, and when you do recharge it, 120 watt wide charging support again, so supremely fast.
Poco's 6.67 inch AMOLED display is a proper stunner, bold and bright with full Dolby Vision support, and compatible games can enjoy up to a 120Hz refresh rate for a fluid finish. There's also Dolby Atmos action with crisp audio spaffed out by the quad speaker arrangement.
A pair of fresher mid-range options are the Poco F6 and the Poco F6 Pro, yet more 6.67 inch delights, although randomly the cheaper Poco F6 actually sports the more premium and just generally more attractive design of the pair. And you've again got Xiaomi's pledge of a good few years of OS and security updates. And as always, that hardware is top notch. You've got different camera tech on the F6 and the F6 Pro, with the result being brighter, bolder snaps spaffed out by that Pro model. But the F6 is still a decent wee everyday shooter, especially if you prefer more natural looking pics. Performance is fantastic too, despite the completely different chipsets powering this pair. Genshin Impact is a proper playable experience even on the higher graphics settings, with the usual excellent HyperOS gaming tools on offer. Battery life is pretty decent as long as you're not too demanding, and again, recharging speed super nippy when you bung a cable in there. Those OLED screens are absolute bangers too, especially on the Pro with its insanely crisp 1440p resolution. You've got impressive HDR video support, and brightness certainly isn't an issue even if you're residing in a country where the weather doesn't suck monkey nuts. So besides the usual grumbles about crapware and occasional wee bits of jank, the Poco F6 and the F6 Pro are well worth a squint if you're after top drawer specs and hardware at a price that won't cause even the stingiest of folk to foul their undercarriage. And there you have it, my lovelies. Deep breath. That's my roundup of the best mid-range smartphones you can grab yourself right now in 2024. Now, I've reviewed basically all of these phones, but at the very least done a very in-depth unboxing and hands-on tour, so definitely go check out those videos for even more detailed information. Pretty sure there's going to be some more mid-range smartphones launching before 2024 is done, and of course, as I say, like the S24 Fan Edition review coming at you soon. So please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell to be the first to see all of that shenanigans, and have yourselves a bloody wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you!